Larissa Hoffman never imagined that her life would change completely on a sunny March afternoon in Düsseldorf. At 24, the young German woman worked as a receptionist at a five-star hotel in the city center, dreaming of saving enough money to attend college to study tourism. With blonde hair, blue eyes, and a warm smile, Larissa always caught the attention of international guests, but she remained professional and reserved. That day, an elegant man of about 35 approached the reception desk. Tall and well-dressed in a tailored Italian suit, he spoke German with a slight accent that Larissa couldn't immediately identify. He introduced himself as Ahmed Al-Rashid, a businessman from Dubai who was in Germany on business. "I would like some recommendations for local restaurants," Ahmed said with a charming smile. "I'm new to the city and prefer to trust someone who clearly has good taste." Larissa felt flattered. Ahmed was different from the other guests, polite, sophisticated, and there was something in his dark eyes that made her feel special. She recommended 3 restaurants, explaining each one in detail. Ahmed listened attentively, asking intelligent questions and showing genuine interest not only in the restaurants but in Larissa herself. "You have a very interesting perspective," he said. "I bet you know Düsseldorf better than many professional tour guides." Over the next 3 days, Ahmed always stopped by the front desk to chat with Larissa. He discovered that she lived alone in a small apartment, that her parents had died in a car accident 2 years earlier, and that she worked hard to support herself. Ahmed was genuinely interested in her life, asking thoughtful questions about her dreams and aspirations. "You know, Larissa," he said on the 3rd day, "I run several companies in the Middle East. Tourism, hospitality, international business. Someone with your intelligence and natural charm could have a bright future in my company." On the 4th day, Ahmed appeared at the front desk with a bouquet of white roses. "These are special," he explained. "In my country, white roses symbolize new beginnings and purity of intentions." Larissa was touched. No man had ever been so attentive to her. Ahmed seemed genuinely interested in getting to know her as a person, not just as a quick conquest. When he invited her to dinner, she accepted without hesitation. Dinner was at the most expensive restaurant in Düsseldorf. Ahmed had reserved a private table overlooking the Rhine River. He told her about his life, how he had inherited the family business, about his properties in Dubai and London, about how lonely he felt despite his financial success. "Larissa, you're different," he said, gently holding her hand. "Most women I meet are only interested in my money. But you have something special, a pure soul." During dessert, Ahmed made a proposal that would change Larissa's life forever. "My company is expanding operations in Europe," he said. "I need someone trustworthy to manage our new luxury tourism projects. Someone who understands both the European mindset and has the flexibility to work internationally." He paused, studying Larissa's face. "The salary would be $8,000 per month to start, plus all the benefits. House, car, international health insurance. And it would be an opportunity to travel the world, experience different cultures." Larissa almost choked on her wine. $8,000 per month was more than 4 times what she earned at the hotel. It would be the fulfillment of all her financial dreams. "But there is one condition," Ahmed continued. "Initially, you would need to come to Dubai for 6 months to learn about our business and corporate culture. After that, you could split your time between Dubai and Europe." Larissa felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. Dubai seemed like a distant world, an adventure she had never imagined. But Ahmed was so convincing, so confident. "I know it's an important decision," Ahmed said. "You don't have to answer now, but think about it. How many people get an opportunity like this, a chance to completely transform your life?" That night, Larissa could hardly sleep. Her friends thought the proposal was too risky, but she saw only the possibilities. Ahmed had made it clear that there was no romantic pressure, it was purely professional, and he seemed so genuine, so interested in her well-being. The next day, Ahmed showed up at the front desk with official contracts translated into German and company documents. Everything looked legitimate and professional. The company, Al Rashid International Holdings, had offices listed in Dubai, London, and Paris. "Larissa," he said with a warm smile, "I hope you accept. I genuinely believe you have the potential to be extraordinary. This is your chance to discover what you are capable of." Larissa looked at the contracts, at the elegant man in front of her, and at the hotel where she'd been working for 3 years with no prospect of growth. The decision seemed obvious. "I accept," she said, signing the documents with slightly trembling hands. Ahmed smiled and respectfully kissed her hand. "You won't regret it, my dear. Your new life will begin in 2 weeks." What Larissa didn't know was that she had signed much more than an employment contract. She had signed her own sentence. The next 2 weeks passed like a fast-forwarded dream. Ahmed took care of all the details of Larissa's move to Dubai. He paid her 3 months' salary in advance, helped her find someone to take care of her apartment, and even bought her clothes suitable for the Middle Eastern climate. "In the world of international business, presentation is key," he explained, as he handed her several bags from expensive boutiques. "You will be representing our company, so you must look the part." Larissa was impressed by his attention to detail. Ahmed had thought of everything: work visa, international health insurance, even an intensive online course on Arab business culture. He seemed genuinely invested in her success. The night before her trip, Ahmed took her out for an intimate farewell dinner. "Larissa, I want you to know that this decision will change your life in ways you can't even imagine," he said. "Dubai is a city of endless opportunities for determined people like you." He handed her a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet with a small key-shaped pendant. "This key symbolizes the doors that will open for you," Ahmed explained. "I want you to wear it always, as a reminder that I believed in your potential from the very first moment." Larissa was moved. No one had ever invested so much in her future. The flight to Dubai was first class. Larissa had never experienced such luxury. Seats that turned into beds, gourmet food, French champagne. Ahmed sat next to her, explaining the businesses he ran and the important people she would meet. "My business partner, Khalid, will be your direct supervisor," he said. "He is a very traditional man, so it is important to show respect for the local culture. That means dressing conservatively, especially in the first few months." Larissa agreed. She had read about the importance of respecting local customs in the Middle East. "Also," Ahmed continued, "for safety reasons, it is best to avoid unnecessary contact with foreigners until you are settled. Dubai has many scammers who target inexperienced Westerners." When they arrived at the Dubai airport, Larissa was impressed by the modernity and opulence. Gleaming skyscrapers, luxury cars, elegantly dressed people. It really seemed like the land of opportunity Ahmed had described. A uniformed driver was waiting for them with a black Mercedes. During the drive to what Ahmed described as the company's temporary apartment, he pointed out important landmarks. The Burj Khalifa, luxurious hotels, impressive shopping centers. The apartment was in an elegant building in Jumeirah. It was spacious, well-furnished, with a view of the sea. "This will be your home for the next few months," Ahmed said. "Fully furnished, all bills paid by the company." Larissa could hardly believe her luck. The apartment was 3 times larger than her place in Düsseldorf, with luxury finishes and modern appliances. "Rest today," Ahmed said. "Tomorrow we'll start with orientation. Khalid will pick you up at 9 a.m. to show you the offices." That first night, Larissa called her friends in Düsseldorf, enthusiastically describing her new life. Everything seemed too perfect to be true. The next morning, a serious, well-dressed man rang the doorbell promptly at 9 a.m. It was Khalid Al-Mansouri, Ahmed's partner. Unlike Ahmed's warm nature, Khalid was formal and direct. "Miss Hoffman," he said in German with a thick accent, "I hope you had a good rest. Today you will learn about your responsibilities." On the way to the office, Khalid explained the basic rules: working hours, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 days a week, dress code, conservative, arms and legs covered, and security protocols. "For security reasons," Khalid said, "your communication with the outside world must be limited. Dubai has many people who exploit information about our business. Until you are fully settled in, it is best to minimize outside contacts." The office was impressive. An entire floor of a skyscraper in the financial center. There were about 20 employees, mostly local men, a few Europeans. Larissa was introduced as a special consultant for European expansion. Her desk was in a separate room with a limited view. "For maximum concentration," Khalid explained, "consulting work requires total focus." During the first few days, Larissa's tasks consisted mainly of translating documents and researching European tourist markets. The work was interesting, but she noticed that she rarely interacted with other employees. "It's temporary," Ahmed assured her when she mentioned it. "Khalid wants to make sure you fully understand our methods before you fully integrate into the team." After a week, Larissa noticed some strange things. Her passport had disappeared from her bag, and when she asked about it, Khalid said it was being processed for a permanent residence visa, standard procedure. Her attempts to contact friends in Germany were often interrupted by internet or phone problems. "Local infrastructure," Ahmed explained. "Dubai still has some technical issues." More troubling was that Larissa did not receive any cash. Khalid explained that everything was paid for directly: apartment, food, transportation. "It's safer that way, less risk of theft." When Larissa asked about opening a local bank account, she was told that it would take a few weeks to process. In the meantime, all her needs were met by the company. Gradually, Larissa realized that her freedom was being subtly restricted. Her apartment had a doorman who always asked where she was going. The company driver always insisted on accompanying her for safety. Her European clothes were gradually replaced with others that were more culturally appropriate. "It's a process of adaptation," Ahmed assured her during their weekly dinners. "All expats go through this. In a few months, you'll feel completely at home." But Larissa was beginning to feel that home was becoming a gilded cage. The bracelet Ahmed had given her, which she had initially loved, now felt heavy on her wrist. And when she tried to remove it, she discovered that it was locked so that she couldn't open it. "It's a security mechanism," Ahmed explained when she asked. "Very expensive bracelet. The jeweler said it prevents accidental theft." In the third week, when Larissa insisted on going out alone to explore the city, she was told that it was not safe for a Western woman alone. All outings had to be accompanied. Slowly, Larissa began to realize that her golden life in Dubai had become a luxurious cage, but she still believed it was temporary, part of the process of adapting to a different culture. What she didn't know was that Ahmed and Khalid were just getting started. The first few months were always the most subtle, establishing dependence, removing external supports, creating gradual isolation. The true nature of her situation was yet to be revealed. 2 months had passed since Larissa's arrival in Dubai, and her life had taken on a tightly controlled routine that she initially attributed to cultural differences. She woke up at 6:30 a.m., and had breakfast prepared by the domestic worker who had appeared in the second week, was transported to the office by her designated driver, worked in her isolated office until 6 p.m., and returned to her apartment where she dined alone. Conversations with Ahmed became less frequent, limited to bi-weekly dinners, where he checked on her progress in adapting. Khalid had taken direct control of her activities, and his nature was proving increasingly controlling. "Miss Hoffman," Khalid said one morning in April, "we have received troubling feedback about your appearance at the office. Some conservative clients consider your look still too Western." Larissa looked at herself. She was wearing a navy blue long-sleeved blouse, dark dress pants, and closed-toe shoes. It seemed completely appropriate for the corporate environment. "I don't understand," she replied. "I'm dressed conservatively as instructed." Khalid sighed dramatically. "In the Arab business world, perception is reality. If our clients feel uncomfortable, our business suffers. You wouldn't want to harm the company that has invested so much in you, would you?" He handed her several even more conservative items of clothing: turtleneck blouses, long skirts, a scarf to partially cover her hair. "These are more appropriate for someone in your position." Larissa hesitated. The clothes seemed overly restrictive for an international consultant. Ahmed mentioned that this was a progressive company. "Ahmed is too generous at times," Khalid interrupted in a colder tone. "He sees potential where others see problems, but success requires complete adaptation." That afternoon, Larissa noticed that her workstation had been relocated to an even smaller, windowless room. "For better concentration," Khalid's secretary explained. "Fewer outside distractions." During a lonely dinner in the apartment, Larissa tried to video call her best friend in Dusseldorf, Petra. The call connected briefly before dropping. When she tried again, a message appeared on the screen. "Service temporarily unavailable." This had been happening with increasing frequency. The next morning, Larissa approached Ahmed about her growing concerns. He welcomed her into his luxurious office, smiling warmly, as always. "My dear Larissa," he said, "I understand your frustration. Cultural adaptation is never easy, but look at the progress you've made. 2 months in Dubai, learning about international business, expanding your horizons." "Ahmed, I feel like I'm losing touch with my previous life," she said honestly. "I can barely talk to friends. I work in isolation, and my clothes are becoming more restrictive every week." Ahmed leaned forward, his expression seemingly concerned. "Larissa, you're going through the most difficult phase of cultural transition. It's normal to feel disconnected, but remember why you came here: the opportunity for extraordinary professional growth." He opened a drawer and took out some papers. "Actually, I have some excellent news. Our investors were impressed with your work. They are offering you a promotion, regional supervisor for all European expansion." Larissa felt a mixture of pride and relief. Perhaps her concerns were unfounded. "The salary would increase to $15,000 per month," Ahmed continued. "But this requires a long-term commitment, a 5-year contract with expanded responsibilities." 15,000 euros per month was more money than Larissa had ever dreamed of earning, but 5 years seemed like a long time. "Can I think about it?" she asked. Ahmed's expression changed subtly. "Of course, but opportunities like this are rare. Our investors are impatient. If you refuse, we'll have to find someone else." There was an implicit threat that Larissa couldn't completely ignore. That night, she decided to take decisive action. She waited until late and tried to call her German phone company directly to report connection problems. After several attempts, she managed to speak to a customer service representative. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, "but your plan was cancelled 6 weeks ago. Cancellation authorized by signed power of attorney." Larissa felt a chill down her spine. She had never signed a power of attorney to cancel her German phone. She tried to access her German bank account online, but found that the password had been changed. When she called the bank, she was informed that changes had been made by duly documented legal proxy. Panic began to set in. Someone was controlling her German finances. But how? Then she remembered she had signed several documents in the first week, some in Arabic that Khalid said were local bureaucratic formalities. Could she have signed powers of attorney without realizing it? The next morning, Larissa confronted Khalid directly about the powers of attorney. "Miss Hoffman," he said coldly, "you signed documents necessary to work legally in Dubai. If you don't remember what you signed, perhaps you should be more careful with important decisions." "I want to see copies of everything I signed," she demanded. Khalid smiled in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "Legal documents are filed with lawyers. It will take weeks to get copies. But why this sudden concern? Are we not taking good care of you?" "I want my passport back," Larissa said firmly. "It is still being processed for a permanent visa. Standard procedure takes months." "Then I want to speak to the German embassy." Khalid's smile disappeared completely. "Miss Hoffman, you're being very ungrateful. After all we've invested in you, this is your response? Distrust and paranoia." He stood up and walked to the window. "Perhaps you're not suited for a leadership position as we thought. Maybe it's better to find a more basic role for your skills." The threat was clear now. Larissa realized she was in a much more dangerous situation than she had imagined. That afternoon, when she tried to leave the office building to go to the German embassy on her own, the security guard politely stopped her. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I have been instructed that you must always be accompanied for security reasons. Company policy." Larissa felt her world collapse. She was effectively a prisoner. When she returned to the apartment that evening, she found Ahmed waiting for her in the living room. His demeanor had changed completely. Still polite, but with a coldness she had never seen before. "Larissa," he said calmly, "it seems you are having a difficult time adjusting. Khalid told me about your concerns today." "Ahmed, what's really going on?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Ahmed smiled, but it was a smile he had never used with her before. "What's going on, my dear, is that you are finally understanding your real situation. You are no longer a guest here. You are our employee, and employees follow rules." For the first time, Larissa saw Ahmed for who he really was, and she realized that her life had changed in ways she was only beginning to understand. The gold bracelet on her wrist, which she still couldn't remove, suddenly seemed much less like a gift and much more like a shackle. The transformation in Ahmed's attitude was instantaneous and terrifying. The charming, attentive man who had won Larissa over in Dusseldorf had completely disappeared, revealing someone calculating and cold that she had never imagined existed. "Sit down, Larissa," he said, pointing to an armchair in the living room that now looked more like an interrogation office. "We have a lot to discuss." Ahmed walked to the kitchen and returned with 2 glasses of tea. "Drink," he said, not as an offer, but as an order. Larissa hesitated. "I'd rather not." "I said drink." Ahmed's voice cut through the air like a razor. "From now on, you will do exactly what I say, when I say it." With trembling hands, Larissa took the glass. The tea had a strange, bitter taste she didn't recognize. "Very well," Ahmed said, sitting down across from her. "Now let's clarify your situation. You are not in Dubai as an employee. You are here as my personal property." The words hit Larissa like a punch in the stomach. "What do you mean?" Ahmed laughed humorlessly. "Did you really believe the international consultant story? Would a German hotel receptionist with no higher education be hired to manage a multi-million-dollar business?" He stood up and began pacing the room. "You were selected, my dear, for very specific characteristics. Young, attractive, alone in the world, financially desperate, and above all, naive enough to sign documents without reading them." Larissa felt nausea rising. "What documents?" "Ah, the documents," Ahmed smiled maliciously. "You signed over all your German assets to our company. You also signed a 10-year personal services contract with substantial financial penalty clauses for breach of contract." He took a leather folder out of a drawer. "You also signed powers of attorney, giving us complete control over your finances, communications, and legal documents, all perfectly legal under the laws of the United Arab Emirates." Larissa tried to stand up, but felt suddenly dizzy. The tea. There was something in the tea. "Calm down," said Ahmed, gently pushing her back into the armchair. "Just a mild relaxant. I need you to listen with a clear mind." You drugged me," she whispered. "I calmed you down." "Important difference." Ahmed sat back down. "Now about your new responsibilities. You will no longer work in the office. Your role is to be my personal companion when necessary, host important guests, and keep up appearances at social events." The implications of his words began to sink into Larissa's confused mind. "Are you talking about prostitution?" Ahmed grimaced in disgust. "What a vulgar word. I prefer luxury hostess. You will be well treated, well dressed, well fed. All you have to do is be pleasant to people who are important to our business." Larissa tried to focus through the fog that clouded her thoughts. "I would never do that. I'll go to the police, the embassy." "With what documents?" Ahmed asked casually. "You have no passport, no money, no independent legal status here. Officially, you are an employee of my company on a long-term contract. If you try to cause trouble, you will be deported as an illegal worker." He leaned forward. "But let's say you manage to get to the German embassy. What are you going to say? That you were brought to Dubai by a reputable businessman, given a luxurious apartment, an excellent salary, and now you're unhappy with the terms of employment that you yourself signed?" Larissa realized the cruel genius of his plan. From the outside, everything looked perfectly legitimate. "Besides," Ahmed continued, "you owe us a considerable amount of money. Apartment, food, clothes, plane ticket, visa fees, everything was paid for in advance. According to your contract, you must work for at least 2 years just to pay off these expenses." The room began to spin gently. Whatever was in the tea was getting stronger. "But don't worry," said Ahmed, his voice sounding like it was coming from far away. "You will be treated well if you cooperate. Nice clothes, good food, even small luxuries. All you have to do is be flexible." "About your responsibilities," Larissa tried to respond, but her tongue was heavy. Her eyes began to close involuntarily. "Sleep now," Ahmed said softly. "Tomorrow we will begin your proper training." When Larissa woke up, she was in a different bed, in a room she had never seen before. The windows were covered with decorative bars that looked pretty but were clearly functional. The door was locked from the outside. A middle-aged Arab woman was sitting in a chair in the corner of the room. "Good morning," she said in English with a heavy accent. "I am Fatima. I will be responsible for your education over the next few days." Larissa tried to sit up, but felt persistently dizzy. "Where am I?" "In your new home," replied Fatima. "This is the private residential wing of Mr. Ahmed's estate. Very secure, very private." Fatima approached the bed with a tray of food. "You must eat. You need strength to learn your new duties." "I won't do what he wants," Larissa said with more determination than she felt. Fatima sighed sadly. "My dear, I've seen many young women like you. They all say the same thing at first, but they all learn that resistance only makes things more difficult." She sat on the edge of the bed. "I've been working for the Al-Rashid family for 15 years. I've seen many women in your situation. Those who cooperate live comfortably. Those who resist..." She didn't finish the sentence. "Other women?" asked Larissa. "How many?" "Right now, you're one of 6. said Fatima matter-of-factly. Women from different countries. Germany, France, Russia, Brazil, all came voluntarily, like you. The revelation hit Larissa like a tsunami. She wasn't the first. She wasn't special. She was just another victim in a systematic operation. How were they brought here? She asked in a weak voice. Fatima lowered her eyes. Different stories. Some like you, job opportunities. Others through marriage agencies, some through promises of a college education, but they all end up here. And none of them managed to escape? One tried 2 years ago, Fatima said quietly. She almost made it to the French embassy, but she was found before... She stopped, clearly not wanting to continue. What happened to her? She's no longer with us, was all Fatima said. Larissa felt pure terror running through her veins. For the first time, she fully understood that her life was in real danger. Fatima, she whispered, can you help me? The older woman looked at her with a mixture of pity and fear. Child, I have a family of my own, small children. I can't risk their lives. She stood up and walked to the door. Your first training session is in 2 hours. I strongly advise you to cooperate. The consequences of resistance are severe. After Fatima left, Larissa remained alone in the luxuriously decorated room that had become her prison. She tested the window. The bars were solid. The door locked with an electronic lock. There was no phone, no computer, no means of communication with the outside world. For the first time since her arrival in Dubai, Larissa cried. Not tears of frustration or homesickness, but pure terror. She was completely in the hands of people who clearly had no qualms about destroying human lives. 2 hours later, as promised, the door opened and 2 large men entered. They said nothing, just indicated that she should accompany them. They led her through luxurious corridors to a room that looked like an executive office. Ahmed was there, along with Khalid and a well-dressed European woman whom Larissa did not recognize. Larissa, Ahmed said in the same falsely cordial tone, I want to introduce you to Madame Dubois. She will be responsible for your professional development. The woman, who looked to be in her 40s with a French accent, looked Larissa up and down as if evaluating merchandise. Good bone structure, she said to Ahmed. Needs work on posture and presentation, but has potential. Japanese clients will especially appreciate the Nordic type. Larissa felt bile rising in her throat. They were literally evaluating her as a product. Madame Dubois will train you over the next few months, Ahmed explained. Social etiquette, international conversation, personal presentation, skills necessary for your new responsibilities. What if I refuse? Larissa asked, trying to sound braver than she felt. Ahmed and Khalid exchanged glances. Khalid took out a tablet and showed Larissa a photo. It was a young blonde woman, clearly beaten, her eyes filled with terror. This is Svetlana, Khalid said coldly. Russian. She also refused at first. This photo was taken after her first encouragement to cooperate. Larissa felt the world spinning again. Did you torture her? We educated her about the reality of her situation, Ahmed corrected. Svetlana is now one of our most cooperative hostesses. She understood that resistance is futile and only brings unnecessary suffering. Madame Dubois spoke directly to Larissa for the first time. My dear, I know this is difficult to accept, but your previous life is over. You can make this easy for yourself and live comfortably, or you can make it difficult and suffer unnecessarily. But in the end, Ahmed added, you will do what we want. The only question is how much pain it will take to get there. Larissa looked at the 3 impassive faces in front of her and realized she was facing a well-oiled machine of human slavery. These people had done this before, many times. They knew exactly how to break their victims' resistance. For the first time, she began to understand that there might be no escape. The next 3 months were a systematic descent into psychological hell. Madame Dubois, it turned out, was an expert at breaking the resistance of young women and training them to complete submission. Her method was diabolical in its simplicity, alternating between small rewards and severe punishments, creating complete psychological dependence. Larissa's typical day began at 5:30 a.m., with supervised physical exercise, not for her health, but to maintain proper form for clients. This was followed by etiquette training, where she learned how to greet important men, how to serve drinks elegantly, how to maintain superficial conversation without ever expressing her own opinions. "A hostess never contradicts," Madame Dubois repeated tirelessly. "A hostess agrees, smiles, and makes men happy. Her job is to be decorative and pleasant." The first few weeks were a constant battle of wills. Larissa refused to participate in certain lessons, especially those involving intimate practices. Each refusal resulted in escalating punishments. First, deprivation of food for 24 hours. Then, solitary confinement in a dark basement for 2 days. Finally, visits from Khalid with persuasion methods that left Larissa with bruises carefully positioned where they would not show through appropriate clothing. "You are only prolonging your suffering," Madame Dubois would say after each punishment. It took Svetlana 6 months to accept reality. "I hope you are smarter." The psychological strategy was refined. After severe punishments, there was always a period of kindness, special food, nice clothes, even small luxuries like books or music. This created twisted gratitude for moments of basic humane treatment. "See how pleasant your life can be when you cooperate?" Ahmed would ask during his weekly visits. "We're not monsters, Larissa. We just want you to accept your place here." More devastating than the physical punishments was the systematic psychological isolation. Larissa saw no other German souls, had no news from home, had no connection to her previous life. Gradually, she began to question her own memories. Had she really had a different life? Was this nightmare her true reality? The turning point came in the 3rd month, when Madame Dubois brought another young woman to meet Larissa. It was Svetlana, the Russian woman from the terrifying photo Khalid had shown her. Svetlana now looked like a completely different person, well-dressed, perfectly made up, smiling serenely. But when Larissa looked into her eyes, she saw something dead inside. "Hello, dear," Svetlana said in English with a heavy Russian accent. "I've come to give you some friendly advice." They sat down in a comfortable room, but Larissa noticed that there were cameras in every corner. "At first, I resisted too," Svetlana said calmly. "I thought I was strong, that I would never submit, but they have effective methods for changing perspectives." "How can you stand it?" Larissa asked desperately. Svetlana smiled, but it was an empty smile. "You stop putting up with it. You just stop being yourself. It's easier that way. But there must be some way to escape. Escape to where?" Svetlana laughed bitterly. "I have no documents, no money, no family looking for me. And even if I manage to leave Dubai, they have connections in many countries. The organization is much bigger than you imagine." She leaned closer, whispering, "Besides, after what I've seen happen to others who tried to escape, death would be mercy in comparison." "What do you mean?" Svetlana glanced nervously at the cameras. "There was an Italian girl, Francesca. She managed to escape for 2 days. When they brought her back..." She paused, trembling. "They kept her alive for weeks, as an example to the rest of us." That night, alone in her prison room, Larissa finally faced the brutal reality of her situation. There was no knight in shining armor coming to rescue her. There was no happy ending. Her only choice was between resisting and suffering unimaginable agony, or submitting and retaining some semblance of humanity. The following week, when Madame Dubois asked if she was ready to cooperate fully, Larissa nodded silently. "Very well," said the Frenchwoman with satisfaction. "Tomorrow you will meet your first client, a Japanese businessman who is very important to our business. Be pleasant." On that last night before her first assignment, Larissa cried silently for hours. She cried for the naive young German girl she had been. She cried for the dreams she would never fulfill. She cried for the freedom she would never have again. But when the sun rose, she dried her tears and began to prepare to become who her captors wanted her to be. Because the alternative was unthinkable, the transformation was complete. Larissa Hoffman, the dreamy receptionist from Dusseldorf, was dead. In her place was only an obedient shadow, trained to please powerful men and never question her situation. Or at least that's what Ahmed, Khalid and Madame Dubois believed. What they didn't know was that, in the darkest depths of despair, Larissa had found something they didn't expect, a cold, calculating anger that grew silently every day. She would learn to play their game, to be the perfect hostess they wanted, and in the meantime, she would meticulously plan her revenge. Because Larissa had realized something important, powerful men who feel completely secure make mistakes, and she would be there to take advantage of every one of those mistakes. The war had only just begun, and this time she would fight by their rules until she was in a position to change them completely. 18 months had passed since Larissa had accepted her reality. To the outside world, she had become exactly what Ahmed wanted, a sophisticated, multilingual, and perfectly obedient hostess. She attended important business dinners, accompanied powerful clients to social events, and never showed any sign of resistance. But beneath the perfectly polished surface, Larissa was meticulously building an escape strategy that would take years to execute. Her first step was to gain the complete trust of her captors. For 6 months, she was the model hostess, always smiling, always pleasant, never asking questions. Ahmed was so pleased with her transformation that he began taking her to increasingly exclusive events, where she met powerful men from across the Middle East. "See how good life can be when you accept reality," Ahmed said one evening, after a particularly successful dinner with Kuwaiti investors. "You have a life that many women envy." Larissa smiled sweetly. "You were right all along. Resisting was just youthful foolishness." What Ahmed didn't know was that during these events, Larissa was carefully cataloging information. Names, business connections, details about financial transactions, and most importantly, evidence of the international human trafficking network that Ahmed coordinated. Her memory, always excellent, became her most powerful weapon. She memorized phone numbers, addresses, dates of important meetings. Gradually, she began to understand the complete structure of the criminal organization. The second step was to establish secret contact with the outside world. This took months of careful planning. During social events, she occasionally met other Western women, diplomats' wives, visiting executives, journalists. She never said anything directly, but she left subtle clues about her situation. Her chance came during an event at the British Embassy. An English investigative journalist, Sarah Mitchell, noticed something in Larissa's behavior that intrigued her. "Are you okay?" Sarah asked discreetly during a moment when Ahmed was talking to other guests. Larissa looked directly into the journalist's eyes for just 2 seconds, long enough to convey silent despair. "Perfectly fine," she replied with an automatic smile. But in those 2 seconds, Sarah saw something she recognized from other stories she had investigated. Human trafficking. In the days that followed, Sarah discreetly began investigating Ahmed al-Rashid and his company. What she discovered shocked her. A sophisticated sex trafficking ring operating under the guise of legitimate business, with connections stretching from Europe to Asia. Meanwhile, Larissa continued her perfect performance, but now with real hope for the first time in over a year. Someone had seen. Someone was investigating. The third step was the most dangerous. documenting physical evidence. Larissa began secretly photographing documents using a small device she managed to hide during one of the routine searches of her room. The device had been accidentally left behind by Sarah during the embassy event, an act of considerable courage. For months, Larissa photographed contracts, client lists, financial records, even communications between Ahmed and other members of the network. Each photo was too risky, but she knew that evidence would be crucial for any future legal action. The decisive moment came when Ahmed announced that she would accompany a very special client, a corrupt German politician who had been blackmailed into facilitating trafficking operations in Europe. "This man has information we need," Ahmed explained. "Your job is to keep him relaxed while we discuss business." For the first time in months, Larissa felt the old terror. But she also saw a unique opportunity. The German politician, Dr. Klaus Weber, was clearly a man tormented by guilt. During dinner, he was visibly nervous, drinking excessively and making comments that revealed his discomfort with the situation. When they were alone at the end of the evening, Larissa made the riskiest decision of her life. "Dr. Weber," she said in perfect German, "I know who you are, and I know you don't want to be here any more than I do." Weber jumped. "What do you mean?" "My real name is Larissa Hoffmann. I'm from Düsseldorf. I was trafficked here almost 2 years ago under the pretext of a job offer." Weber paled. You're German?" "Yes, and I know you're being blackmailed into cooperating with them." For 20 minutes, in a whispered and desperate conversation, they exchanged crucial information. Weber confirmed that European journalists were investigating the network and that German authorities were preparing an international operation. "But we need direct evidence," Weber said. "Victim testimony and documentation proving the operations." Larissa made her final decision. "I have both." Over the next 2 weeks, through a series of risky communications, Larissa managed to pass on to Weber, and through him to German authorities, all the evidence she had collected over months. The international operation was launched simultaneously in 6 countries on a Tuesday morning in September. Special teams raided Ahmed's properties in Dubai, London, Paris, and Frankfurt. More than 40 people were arrested, including important clients and government facilitators. When Ahmed was awakened at 5 a.m. by a knock on the door, he found not only local police, but also Interpol agents and representatives from multiple European embassies. "Ahmed al-Rashid," said the lead agent, "you are under arrest for human trafficking, kidnapping, money laundering, and a list of other charges that will take hours to read in full." Ahmed looked across the hallway and saw Larissa walking freely alongside German agents. She was no longer dressed as an obedient hostess, but wore simple, dignified clothes. Her face showed no longer submission, but the quiet determination of someone who had regained her humanity. "You," he said with anger and disbelief. Larissa stopped and looked directly at him for the first time in months without lowering her eyes. "My name is Larissa Hoffmann," she said clearly. "Not your property, not your hostess. A free German woman you should never have underestimated." Ahmed was led away in handcuffs while shouting useless threats. Epilogue. 3 years later, Larissa stood in the German federal court in Frankfurt, concluding her testimony against the last members of Ahmed's network who were on trial. For 3 years, she had testified in courts in 6 different countries, helping to secure convictions totaling more than 400 years of collective imprisonment. Ahmed al-Rashid was sentenced to life imprisonment in the United Arab Emirates, but not before being extradited to Germany, France, and the United Kingdom to face additional charges. He would die in prison. Khalid received 35 years in prison. Madame Dubois, 28 years. Dr. Weber, in exchange for his crucial cooperation, received only 5 years and was instrumental in dismantling other similar networks. All 6 women in Ahmed's operation were rescued and received extensive psychological support. Svetlana had returned to Russia and was slowly rebuilding her life. 2 others had become lawyers, specializing in human trafficking crimes. Larissa used the compensation money, $2.3 million recovered from Ahmed's assets, to establish a foundation that helped victims of human trafficking and educated young people about the warning signs of international predators. The Larissa Hoffman Foundation operated in 12 countries and had helped more than 300 women escape similar situations. That day in court, after her final testimony, Larissa stepped out into the German sunshine and took a deep breath. For the first time in years, there were no more trials pending, no more criminals to face. Her life was finally hers again. She looked at the gold bracelet she still wore on her wrist, no longer a symbol of slavery, but a reminder of her own strength. She had managed to open the security lock while still in Dubai, but chose to keep it as a reminder that she had survived the worst that human beings could do to each other. Her phone rang. It was Sarah Mitchell, the journalist who had first recognized her situation. "How did it go?" Sarah asked. "It's over," Larissa said simply. "Finally over." "And now?" Larissa smiled, a genuine smile that hadn't appeared on her face in 4 years. "Now I'm going to live." She walked through the streets of Frankfurt toward the future she had earned through extraordinary courage, intelligence, and patience. She had learned that sometimes the sweetest revenge was not violence, but simply surviving and ensuring that those who had caused harm could never hurt others again. The gold bracelet sparkled in the German sun, no longer a chain, but a trophy of war against those who believed women were property to be bought and sold. Larissa Hoffman had proven them fatally wrong. The end.